AITA for kicking my husband out after he made a tantrum because my son refuses to call him dad. My husband, Josh, 30, and I, 32F, have been married for over a year and dated for 5. I have a son S, 12, from a previous relationship. My ex and I are nowhere near friends, but he's an amazing father towards our kid in every possible way. My kid adores his father and they look pretty much alike. Josh and I've been trying to get pregnant for 2 years without success because he has a low count. We've tried everything but right now we can only hope that it happens naturally since we can't afford more treatments. I guess that out of sadness Josh has been around S a little more, trying to get him to do things together and spend some time. S loves him, but he sees my husband as an authority or uncle figure and not like a dad. Josh has been trying to get S to call him dad or father since we began to try to have a baby because he didn't want my son to feel left out, but S has refused every single time and continues to call him Josh. It's okay. I had a talk with my husband about how S just prefers his name and that it's nothing personal. After a few more times, Josh desisted. But right now my husband has begun to try again and S continues to refuse, saying that he already has a daddy and that he doesn't like the pressure Josh puts on him. I've tried to talk to my husband again but every time he says that's not fair. My ex gets all the credit while he's been a father figure for my kid half of his life. I told him that we cannot force S to call him something he doesn't want to, and that not being called dad makes him less than my ex. I thought that was it, but yesterday while we were having dinner S told my husband Josh, "Look at this." And my husband totally snapped. He grounded my son and took his switch saying that unless he starts to call him dad he won't get it back. S was almost crying and I told him that none of that was gonna happen because we won't force him to do something he doesn't want to. My husband began to throw a tantrum about how it's not fair, how's looks so much like my ex and it's always a reminder, and that he deserves more respect. I told him to get out of the house until his mind is clearer and doesn't feel that fighting a kid it's right. I get that Josh feels desperate and hurt, but I don't think that making S call him dad is the right move. However, I could be wrong. I know that my ex won't have any problem sharing the title and I'm afraid I might be the asshole for not taking Josh's feelings into consideration. Reply to the story. NTA, you're looking after your family but your husband is. Your son is doing what he's comfortable and sounds like they have had a good relationship until Mo. Thank you for kicking him out as hopefully it'll wake him up to how much damage he's potential done to his relationship with your son. Please speak to your son, saying it's not his fault etc. and get your son therapy and demand your husband gets some too. How frightening it must have been for your son and to hear how his stepfather hates how he looks like his dad. Words have been spoken that can have damage for years to come. It's also a red flag. If you get pregnant, does that mean his will play favorites with bio child as it doesn't look like your ex? You need to have a big discussion with your husband before he comes back. Good luck. Another reply to the story. NTA. Your husband was very out of line to the point of abuse. That said, you should encourage him to get therapy. It sounds like he learned he has low count and then was left to figure it out on his own. Men have dreams of family and children too, and while women's infertility is stigmatized still, men's infertility is even more stigmatized and diminished. If you are someone who wanted children, to be told that you can't have them is soul-crushing and world-altering. He may also feel emasculated, but based on his behavior I imagine the lack of biological children is more of an issue for him. He needs to get help so that he can deal with this in a healthy way and also so that he can understand his options. This is not to excuse his behavior but hopefully to help him on a path to remedy it. Next story. AITA for telling my stepson's bumble date that she should focus on her career and children rather than dating men like my stepson? For context, my M36 stepson, M19, lives at home with my wife, F41, and I. Last weekend, I found a woman, F20s, in my living room after I woke up in the morning. She had slept over in my stepson's room, and my stepson was still asleep. He normally sleeps in late on the weekends. When I first came downstairs, she was crying on the phone. I proceeded to introduce myself and ask if I could help with anything. She said that she was on the phone with her mother, who was taking care of her son while she was staying over with my stepson. I proceeded to ask if she knew my stepson through his job, and she said that they met online, Bumble. We talked a little bit further, and, due to reasons I will explain, I ultimately told her that she should not be prioritizing dating, especially men like my stepson, and should instead focus on her career and spending more time with her son. She was a single mother. Here's the thing. My stepson has been living with my wife and I since he graduated high school over a year ago. He is handsome, tall, and in shape, due to his full-time work as a swimming instructor and lifeguard. Since he graduated, he has brought numerous women over to our house, at least 20, but I have lost count now and am not always aware due to working sporadic hours. At first, my wife and I were surprised about how he was meeting them. He barely has enough time to date, and uses most of his free time in his room playing video games. When we confronted him about it, he said that he just uses online dating to set up dates and either brings them to our house or drives to them. Last year, he had 2 pregnancy scares, which he handled himself, but my wife and I were aware. Furthermore, a few months ago, I noticed that he kept bringing back 2 different women to our house in alternation. Although I've always been a monogamous, long-term relationship type of guy, I understand the whole gist of young men sowing their wild oats. My wife doesn't seem to mind much as long as it's safe and consensual. However, I feel like my stepson may not be being completely transparent with his dates, and I certainly don't believe he is currently a good candidate for young, single mothers. Am I in the wrong for interjecting and diverting this young, single mother away from her current situation with my stepson? I believe that her son will greatly benefit from her taking a break from dating and spending more time with him. Edit. To clarify, I will admit that I have a protective urge when it comes to single mothers. My wife had a number of abusive partners in her past and has been in therapy ever since. While I'm not saying my stepson is abusive, I do not believe that the hookup culture he's engaging in is healthy for a young, single mother with her whole future ahead of her. Career and children come first, in my opinion. Reply to the story. What I read was someone defending making a statement to a single mother he knew all of what? 5-10 minutes? Telling her that she needed to focus on her career and her son. Having the sheer audacity to imply that she wasn't. How does know she wasn't prioritizing her child? How does he know she wasn't prioritizing her career? How does he know that she didn't see an easy with his stepson and figure fuck it and sleep with him? How does he know this is a repetitive thing with this woman? Perhaps this was the first time in her life she'd spent away from her child. But no, makes an assumption and everyone jumps on the bandwagon. Admits he has no frame of reference other than his now wife who used to be a single mom. So because his wife had issues dating and being a single mom, makes the assumption this single mom must not be focused on the right things. Ironic, he dated a single mother and that was okay. But this woman needed to focus on her career and child. Single mothers can't win. No matter what we do, someone has an opinion on it. Date? People think we need to focus on our kids. Don't date? We need male role models for our children. Focus on work. We should spend more time with our kids. Focus on working as little as possible. We need to make more money and not be on welfare. Go to college? Should have spent that time with the kids. Don't go to college? How the hell do you think you can make any money? Another reply to the story. You do realize that single mothers are people, right? How do you know she doesn't put her child first and this was a night out that she needed and the reason she was crying was because she doesn't leave him often and already feels bad? Despite what society is told parents all need a break from their kids. It does not make them bad parents, it makes them responsible parents. We really need to get rid of the stigma that having time to yourself as a parent, especially a single one as you give up who you are to be a parent, is selfish. My husband and I are child-free and not by choice. But we make an effort to help out friends who have kids. Give parents nights out without the worry of their kids. A single mom friend of ours used me on a few weekends where their dad fell through on taking them, and she had made plans to have a girls' night. She is with her children 99.9% of the time and often without any relief. She is allowed to blow off steam and sometimes forget she is a mom, which by the way she never does, because the times I've babysat for her I had to tell her to stop calling and go have fun. Moral of the story? Don't assume you know how good of a parent or that someone isn't putting their child first on one post by a person who did the same thing. Parents are people too. They are allowed to have friends and lives separate from their children, which surprise surprise, an unstressed parent is a better parent and doesn't scream and yell at their kids because they never get a break. Also AITA for the exact reasons stated above. Next story. AITA for speaking my mind and upsetting my husband. My husband is a Jehovah's Witness. He didn't tell me until about a year into dating, so I suppose I knew what I was getting into. We've been together for 3 years, going on 4 with our daughter who just turned 1. For a bit of background knowledge, I was asked to study the Bible, and as I respected his religion, I accepted. I'm an ex-Mormon, which was against my will, and found my way out in my teenage years. Anyways, as I was studying the Bible, I realized I would never believe in God like I once did, and I'm agnostic at most. Before I gave birth, I told my midwife if anything happens, I can send for a blood transfusion for both me and my baby and put it in writing. Now present. My husband is still mad that I continue to celebrate holidays, and was especially mad when I celebrated my daughter's birthday because it's his parenting decision. He'll lose his privileges if he's not the head of the household, because apparently if you can't keep your family on the right track, you can't lead the congregation. I was going to celebrate the day I brought a new life into this world and make her feel loved and experience the unwrapping of presents. I got fed up today and angrily told him that he is religious. He is the witness. He doesn't celebrate holidays or birthdays, but I do, and so does my family. I keep decorations out of the house as I'm respecting his space, and celebrate outside the house and go to my parents for said day. I respect his love for God, and he has every right to believe in what he wants. Our daughter can grow up with both, and I will not have her be that kid who says I can't celebrate because my daddy says so. She can experience a full childhood with friends, Easter egg hunting and having Christmas or birthdays while still attending the hall. And when she reaches an age where she understands both, she can decide for herself. If she wants to stop celebrating when she's older, she can. If she wants to step away from the religion, she can. My husband won't talk to me and took me off of our vacation, telling me I can't stay home and watch our daughter even though I already placed time in at work to go. Our vacation was supposed to be a week long and we were leaving in 2 days. I do kind of feel like AITA because I was a bit harsh and disregarded his feelings. Reply to the story. Please leave him. He lied to you for a year, which is plenty of time for you to form a real attachment to him. This is something taught by witnesses. They are taught to be overly warm and friendly for months before divulging their religion. Because by then you are captivated by them, and that is meant to get you interested in their religious beliefs. You see them happy all the time, you want it too. It's manipulation and cult recruitment tactics. This will be a permanent war between you, and your daughter will never feel comfortable splitting things like that when you're both under the same roof. This will continue to get worse. He will begin to blame you for a lot of issues that will arise for him and his congregation. You've already got first-hand knowledge that they know full well he isn't controlling you correctly. He is also controlling and manipulating you by taking you off the vacation booking. Call the vacation place and tell them that your husband is not mentally well and that you need to cancel his bookings and reinstate yours. Please, leave now. His religious congregation could begin to get involved, and Jehovah's Witnesses have been known to do some seriously horrific things in the name of converting people who they feel belong to their church. Edit. Thank you so much for silver. and wholesome less than at less than and so many more. Wow, truly, I didn't think my comment would have this much of an impact. I'm grateful to you all. ETA, I forgot to give judgment, I was too concerned about the situation at hand apparently. NTA and UNTA if you got a lawyer and got you and your daughter safe ASAP. Edit 3, thank you for my first gold and for such a wholesome reason. Another reply to the story. Your NTA, but you have a fundamental misunderstanding of what is happening here. You see this as a disagreement on a personal choice. He sees you as the insubordinate heathen humiliating him in front of his hall and keeping him and his child from being saints in heaven. The Jehovah's Witnesses are a hardline religious sect and successful religiously mixed marriages tend to be rare. The group collectively engages in both love bombing and shunning to keep parishioners in line. Women are expected to be subservient, and it's not exactly uncommon for an entire congregation to support a man socially, legally, and financially in divorcing a bad woman and suing for the maximum custody possible, so that the children will be raised in the faith. You'd be amazed at how far that much money can go. Hopefully other former JWs will be along to better educate you on the pitfalls of the life you've chosen. I personally think you're underreacting. Edit, typo. Next story. AITA for not wanting to support my boyfriend's early retirement? My boyfriend has just paid off his mortgage and now wants to take early retirement on £8,000 per annum. The only way he can afford to do this would be for me to move in with him and work full-time so that the bills can be paid and he can do what he wants in his spare time. I am 50 and my own pension fund is not great, so I don't expect to be able to retire for the next 20 years. Am I being unreasonable in not wanting to uproot my life, and that of my son, and wanting to pursue my own career on my own terms? I am planning on going traveling while working once my son leaves home, and saving as much money as possible, not supporting my boyfriend who has never supported me. Am I an asshole for putting myself first, as my parents and boyfriend seem to think, or should my boyfriend rethink his situation? I don't have any real advantage in doing this as my boyfriend is leaving the house to his stepson even if I do move in with him, and I would have to get rid of all my stuff as there's no room for it at his place. Reply to the story. Oh my God. I can't believe the government won't let people live their lives. It's already hard to be disabled and live with the stigma. But you can't get married? That just sounds illegal and inhumane. Another reply to the story. You actually can be kicked off of some types of SSDI as well, and on those types, it is the same in that you cannot live with your partner or get married. I saw your edit, and it's common for people to reply that that's not true. SSDI doesn't care about marriage or living together, that's just SSI, but they're wrong. SSDI under your own work credits, you can marry and live with whomever you want. However, if you are like me and are on SSDI under the program Adult Disabled as a Child, you cannot marry unless your partner is also an adult disabled as a child on SSDI and cannot live together. Adult disabled as a child is a special caveat/clause to SSDI for adults who were totally and permanently disabled before the age of 22, and thus didn't have enough work credits to qualify for disability. If the adult disabled child was disabled before 22 and has at least one parent who is drawing retirement or disability SSDI, or a parent who has died and was entitled to those benefits, then you are granted SSDI based on your parent's work credit history and income. So for example, I have a genetic disease, was disabled before 22, and am in the process of applying for SSDI as an adult disabled child. I have been with my partner for 5 years, but we cannot get married and may have to move to different apartments even though we've lived together for years, because it will disqualify me from SSDI income and Medicare, which you already don't get until after a 2 years waiting period on SSDI under the age of 65. It is assumed he can support me if we were to get married, despite him also being 24 and only having a part-time, low-wage, better than minimum wage but not much, job that grants no benefits at all. So we can't. Just over 10% of all SSDI recipients qualify for SSDI as adults disabled as children. This is over 1 million Americans as of 2016. So much for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not if you're disabled and need medical care and money for rent and food, I guess. Additionally, as I think people have mentioned here but I want to reiterate because it's ridiculous, with both SSI and on Medicaid, which adult disabled children under SSDI are typically on until they qualify for Medicare, the minute you go over $2,000 by a penny in your assets, with very few exclusions, your disability is halted, and depending on circumstances your health insurance may also be halted. Exceptions are for one home that you owned before being on SSI/SSDI, and one vehicle, and one very specific savings account called an ABLE account that was created in 2014 and that is restricted for specific medical costs from a list, and requires documentation to use any money from. To make clear how ridiculous this is to those not from the USA or unfamiliar with USA disability law, I live in Colorado, where the cost of living is around 12% higher than the national average. So, a bit higher but not ridiculous. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the metro area, before utilities, is $1,750. My last ambulance trip was over $3,400, we traveled less than 1 kilometer to the hospital literally down the street. My last surgery, and I have had 3 surgeries this year alone, was over $98,000, and I spent less than 8 hours in the hospital for this procedure, despite in most countries this being a 4 to 7 day inpatient procedure with first night in ICU. My last 3-day hospital stay was $47,000. I pay $80 a week for physical therapy, after insurance. My medications, 2 of which are for rare, aggressive diseases, were I to have to buy them out of pocket, would be close to $600,000 every month. $2,000 covers nothing. How are you supposed to be financially smart and save for emergencies with that cap? It won't cover an ambulance ride, much less the ER visit or, God forbid, the hospital stay and/or surgery. If your car breaks down, it may or may not be enough to cover it. And that's the maximum we can have in savings, at any time, ever. My parents aren't allowed to send me more money, even if they want to, because it counts as income. It is quite literally forced poverty and forced solitude. I can't save up money, I can't live with or marry the love of my life. Hell, I can't even get health insurance from disability for 2 years after I get SSDI, meaning I have to get on public insurance which will not even begin to cover the costs of my medications and treatments, due to the rare nature of my genetic disease and the medications and treatments for it. It won't cover it even though I got training to do almost all my own home care nursing, I access my own central line, I administer my own 4 medications and fluids, I do my own wound care, all of that to make it more affordable, but public insurance still wouldn't cover nearly enough, so I'd have to purchase a supplemental healthcare plan for even more money every month while still not being able to have more than $2,000 in savings. This country needs reform. I have lost friends, loved ones of friends and family, and other advocates I work with because of the extreme capitalism, greed, and lack of any rationality or empathy in our medical system. I have seen people die for the lack of a few $100s or less, because insurance didn't want to pay for the more effective treatment. Not 1 or 2 people, but so many. Carrie Ann Lucas, a name more people should know but few do, was one of if not the most well-known disability advocate in USA history. She was a well-known lawyer, political activist, and a regular in D.C. who spoke in the Senate and Congress frequently. She had a rare form of muscular dystrophy and was dependent on a ventilator in her final years, but still traveled to, spoke, and advocated for Americans with disabilities and all Americans' right to affordable, accessible health care. She died on February 24, 2019, because her doctor prescribed an aggressive antibiotic for her lung infection, which is incredibly serious for someone on a ventilator. This antibiotic had worked for her infection in the past. Her insurance denied the request and insisted she try a cheaper antibiotic. Her insurance company killed her, by deciding that they know what she needs for her treatment better than her doctor, despite never seeing or examining her. What was her life not worth, according to our medical system, according to insurance? The antibiotic her doctor ordered was $2,000, and the one they ordered her to try was a few hundred instead. $2,000 in the USA, that is, where costs are artificially high, many times over other countries. Carrie and Lucas died for $2,000 that her insurance company, United Healthcare, who have a net worth of $400.7 billion USD, would not pay. This happened to the most well-known, most followed and reported on, most politically active, most influential disability activist in our country. Just imagine how often this happens to tens of thousands of people who are not on the news and at the head of activism campaigns and organizations. I don't have to imagine because my community loses people every damn day to save what is pocket change to the USA's multi-trillion-dollar healthcare insurance industry, pocket change that comes to the tune of thousands of human lives.